Thanks so much for joining us right here for The Right View. Tonight, I am joined by my good friend, you know her, former regional administrator in Housing and Urban Development, Lynne Patton, as well as he's an actor, a comedian, one of the funniest people I know. You might mistake him for Oprah Winfrey, but Terrence Williams. I can't. If nobody saw this, go to Terrence's Instagram because it is the funniest thing I've ever seen. You have quite a likeness to Oprah in your photo, Terrence. So welcome, guys. It's great to have you both back on the show. It's been a while, so I think we need to start by talking about this crazy story. In case nobody is aware, the liberal media hates Donald Trump, period, right? Now, they keep trying to sweep under the rug some pretty big news this week about the fraudulent reporting that, shocker, Washington Post used as a phony, they used a phony anonymous source to claim that President Trump pressured an election investigator in Georgia. Now, outlets like ABC News, PBS, USA Today, CNN, and so many more picked up on this report, guys, running articles with the fraudulent quote emblazoned in the headline, only to have the actual phone call recording leak and everyone to find out that it was nothing but another lie from the left. So they claimed in this Washington Post article that Donald Trump pressured one of these folks in Georgia to find the fraud and that this individual would be a national hero. And that is what they use as one of the tenets to try and unconstitutionally impeach the president for a second time. They cited this Washington Post article. So, guys, I'll let you have at it. Lynne, I want to hear from you. After, wasting all of the taxpayer money, wasting time doing this, only to find out that this impeachment was based on a phone call that was totally misreported by the Washington Post. Are you surprised? And B, shouldn't there be something, some ramifications, something to happen ultimately to the Washington Post, allowing this fake headline and this fake news to be released?
Absolutely, Laura. And hey, Terry, what's up, hon? Look, I think your father-in-law, quite frankly, should take a page out of Nick Salmon's book and sue the Washington Post. All three of us have had fake news articles written about ourselves, and we just tolerate it. And it's obvious that the only way the mainstream media is actually going to start reporting the facts, doing their due diligence, and being responsible journalists is if we hit them where it hurts, which is in the pocket in a lawsuit. And, I want to say that the ramifications of this were much more deep than just a few fake news articles.
That's right.
The state of Georgia looked into pursuing obstruction of justice charges against the president of the United States. They still, I believe, are exploring that. So, this has ramifications far-reaching, and I really, really hope that the folks surrounding the president right now are really exploring their legal options.
Well, they should. I mean, Terrence, Lynne's right. This is a much broader issue, I think, and it hurt a lot more than people maybe even realize. When you have outlets like the Washington Post who are able to use anonymous sources, and by the way, they're always anonymous, right?
Always.
We never know, like they never have anybody that is believable. It's an anonymous source. They were able to further this impeachment effort by the Democrats for Donald Trump. I mean, you cannot have a country and then have a press that cannot be trusted like this. And by the way, that nothing will happen to the Washington Post. Nothing has happened to them. They get a slap on the wrist. They print it at the top of their article. This was misquoted. Well, the damage is already done, Terrence.
You know what? It is absolutely ridiculous. But you know what, Laura? They are obsessed with President Trump. They are obsessed with this man. They can't get enough of him. They miss him so much. They just love him. So they love him and they hate him. I don't understand it. Listen, they can't live with him and they can't live without President Trump. Okay. Now, the Washington Post will not be held accountable, but let one of us go on Facebook or Twitter and post some fake news. We are banned, suspended.
That's right.
We can't post.
Amen.
And nothing happens to them at all. They post these fake articles all over the internet, and they are not taken down at all. Twitter, I mean, these people will not be held accountable. They can get away with murder. But you know why they use it? They use his name all the time because no one reads the Washington Post, no one reads the New York Times, unless Donald Trump's name is in the paper. So that's why they put his name in there. You know,
It's true.
You're
It's
so
true.
right. You're so right. They have to keep him around. My husband was on my show on Tuesday, and we were talking about that exact thing, that they are so obsessed with Donald Trump. They can't live without him. They cannot survive without him. Now,
And think of how much money they've made off of him.
Oh, my
Jim
gosh.
Acosta wrote a book. April Ryan wrote a book. Like, I think Anna Navarro wrote a book. All these people made millions of dollars. They are best-selling authors because of him. He's their golden goose, and Terrence is right. They're desperate and pathetic without them, going back to their boring lives.
That's true. Well, because if we're being honest, what's happening in the White House right now is absolutely boring. It's like staring at just a plain white wall. Like nothing is happening there that is exciting anyone. And maybe that's actually what is happening in there. Maybe he's just staring at the wall. Who knows? Now, I want to get you guys to respond to this, because when I heard this next story, it is so outrageous that this is happening. Columbia University is now fighting against racism and sexism by, wait for it, bringing back segregation. Now, the university is offering 6 graduation ceremonies segregated by race. I mean, Terrence, what is this? If we want everyone to be equal, they're separating people even by income levels. Does it make you feel better to see the liberals embrace the failed racist policies of the past, or is this a huge mistake?
Listen, Laura, I am lost for words, okay? And I have a motor mouth, okay? That's what my teachers used to call me back in elementary, motor mouth, because I couldn't stop talking. I am lost for words right now. This is segregation.
Yeah.
So you're gonna put all black people, so you're gonna separate black and whites, and that's supposed to bring people together? That don't make sense. That don't add up. How can you bring people together but separate them at the same time? It don't make sense, Laura. Like, they are bringing back segregation. Martin Luther King fought so hard, to bring us all together as one. I mean, this man is rolling over in his grave right now. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what world are we living in? Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
And by the way, there is a difference between celebrating your culture, celebrating your heritage, and then separating people for such an event like a graduation. And Lynn, last week you sent me this picture from a grocery store of rice on the shelf, and underneath the rice in this grocery store, it had a tag, Black-owned business. But are we going back to
absolutely
so hard to get away from? What is this?
And Terrence is right. Martin Luther King Jr. would be rolling over in his grave. And I was just about to say that when I posted that picture of the rice and being black owned and the beans being Hispanic owned or whatever the products were, I literally posted the caption, "We are advancing ourselves right back into the days of segregation." And it's true. And now with Columbia, these are supposed to be the best and the brightest. To have just overseen HUD and the largest, low-income population in the United States, right here in Region 2, to see that they're actually separating these graduations by economic and socioeconomic status as well was actually heartbreaking to me on a personal level. Some of these kids are the first in their generation to go to college, and now they're being isolated and identified as such. Like you said, there's a difference between celebrating something and celebrating accomplishments and saying, yes, this company is black owned. If you want to, obviously give them business, that's up to you. But then there's a difference in actually creating aisles and silos and having separate, graduation ceremonies. It's absolutely outrageous. Martin Luther King said we're supposed to be judged on the content of our character. And it's funny because, Laura, my boyfriend, Drew, when I told him about the grocery store comment, he actually said the most obvious thing. And that is that people buy food and brands that taste good.
Yeah, exactly.
It has nothing to do with who owns it.
By the way, I have never once thought about when I'm in the grocery store ever who owns a company. You're right. I want something that my kids are going to eat, that my husband is going to eat,
right.
that we all like.
Right.
It has never mattered. But now the fact that they want it to matter so badly, they're so desperate to instill race in everything. Everything has to be just layered with it.
Exactly.
They're so obsessed with it. And I want to go really quickly to this one because the University of Kansas last year started offering a humanities course on the angry white male. Literally, this is a course you could take at the University of Kansas. Humanities 365, Angry White Male Studies. This course charts the rise of, and this is directly from their website, the angry white male in America and Britain since the 1950s. I mean, what are we doing? Why are we putting people in these boxes? What even is an angry white male? Terrence, do you know about this? Am I missing something?
I know nothing about it, but can we back up a second? I have to confess to something. I have went to the grocery store and looked for a Black-owned food brand. Aunt Jemima. I used to look for that black thing. I want Aunt Jemima pancakes. I'm not gonna lie. I said,
those are the favorite. By the way, those are the favorite in our house as well, Terrence.
And it's crazy because you're right. If there was a class called Angry Black Female,
oh my God,
all hell would break loose. And it's just such a stereotype. And I think we all have seen Falling Down with Michael Douglas. And is that what they're envisioning? Because our good friend Angela Stanton tweeted something the other day. She lost the father of her son. And she literally said, I'd like to know how many Black Americans out there have lost a loved one to an angry white man, to white supremacy. Because I just lost a loved one to the hands of another Black person. And if we really break it down, we are killing ourselves in the inner cities. The greatest enemy of our communities is not an angry white man. It's an angry, disgruntled and dejected Black man. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, look, I think that it's my personal opinion that I will raise my children to look at everyone as equals, that I would never want them to do what we see so many doing, segregate people into groups and label them. It is exactly, as you both said, the opposite of what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have wanted to see happen. And, we'll see how the Columbia segregated graduations go. We'll stay tuned for that.
Have a unity class, we don't need to have classes about angry white men.
Right.
We need to have a happy class about unity. We all need to come together. We are all brothers and sisters in this country.
Great. Amen, Terrence.
Amen. We both said it. I love it. Now, you'll find this surprising, but President Trump warned us about what would happen, guys, if Joe Biden became president of the United States. Biden has begun his next failure by now fighting to repeal the Trump tax cuts. I mean, these tax cuts helped so many people. I continue to have people come up to me and say, I would have lost my business if not for the Trump tax cuts. Biden wants to repeal them. He is trying to propose the first major federal tax hike since 1993. And guess why? Because he has to fund the $1.9 trillion COVID package, if you could actually even call it a COVID package, because we know that 9% of what was actually in there went to anything to do with COVID. So he's expected to raise the corporate tax, personal taxes, tax rates for high earners. This is something that is going to have, Lynn, a very negative ripple effect for businesses, for small business owners, and then ultimately it's going to come down on the people that work at these companies and these corporations. This is not going to be a positive thing. Again, the first time since 1993 since we've seen something like this proposed.
And look, when your father-in-law signed the 2017, tax bill, lowering taxes for corporations, we all remember what happened. People started getting big bonus checks. Corporations started hiring more people, more Americans. They started reversing plans to leave the country. In fact, I remember your father-in-law single-handedly had all these, General Motors, Ford, Harley Davidson, all these people came to the White House, said that they were going to keep their factories here in the United States because of this tax cut. Now, you're going to see more corporations going overseas and fleeing these types of conditions. And how can you blame them? Unfortunately, to make the same product in the United States costs more money. They're going to have to lay people off. They're going to have to, either lower production of what consumers want. It's outrageous and it's sad. And you're right. The president tried to warn us. He tried to make us more self-sufficient as a country. And now look where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. And Terrence, don't worry, because Joe Biden is going to get out of the White House. He is hitting the road this week for his Help Is Here tour to promote the $1.9 trillion liberal wish list that, again, includes less than 10% of actual COVID relief. But help is here, Terrence, for who? Who are they helping?
Listen, that COVID package should have been 100% for the American people, to help them because of the pandemic.
Right.
It should be 100% about COVID. 100%. So who is he helping? He's trying to repeal these great things that President Trump put in place. He is going to hurt these small businesses. They are already on life support because of the pandemic.
That's right.
Yeah.
They cannot afford for Joe Biden to be repealing these things that are helping, that will help them. So I don't know who this help tour is for. I don't know who he's helping.
Maybe someone will help Joe Biden a little bit, because he seems very confused and
it's
very
true.
lost.
Not only did he lower the stimulus checks by over $600 more than less than what he promised, but he's reducing the amount of unemployment, benefit that President Trump signed into law, which was $600 extra per week. That's now reduced by $100.
Yep.
Laura, I know who he's helping now. Why did I think of that? He's helping the illegal immigrants.
Oh, well, by the way, that is literally the only group of people that Joe Biden seems to be helping, are people who want to come to our country illegally. Because don't forget, he offered them free health care. He said, you can come here, you can have amnesty in the United States. The borders are wide open. Come on in, bring the COVID in, bring the drugs in, human trafficking, bring it all in. That is who Joe Biden is helping. The drug traffickers, the human traffickers, people that probably don't mean well for the American people. Yep. God forbid. I hope that's not the case, but it's a really scary thing to see. And, the problem that I have, I think, is we weren't warned about socialism, and we weren't warned about government taking over every aspect of your life. If Joe Biden and the Democrats got control of the government, well, here we are. I mean, this package and what it does is it makes people, as you guys just pointed out, it makes things go overseas. Americans will be forced to take help from the government. They're going to be forced to go on food stamps. They're going to be forced to file for unemployment, because they are going to lose their job. They are not going to have the same situation that they had under President Donald Trump, period. So we're seeing the beginning of the socialist ways of the Democratic Party happening with this COVID package. Again, I use that term very loosely, but this is only the beginning. We are only in March here. Joe Biden didn't take office until the end of January. So I'm really afraid to see sort of the trajectory of things from this point on, because who knows, what could be in store for all of us. So it is very scary. So
one of the things I wanted to say was, he told us to protect our borders. He told us to bring manufacturing back home. One of the things we saw at the beginning of COVID was the inability to get a lot of PPE here when we needed it, because manufacturers who make, medical supplies had moved overseas to China.
Yep.
He warned us about China, and China was withholding this PPE from coming into the United States. They literally slowed it down, for whatever reason, and that's a whole different show. But, he warned us every step of the way to be less dependent on other countries. We were energy independent for the first time ever. And now we're no longer that at all, because we're dependent on oil. And Democrats fought him every step of the way.
Yeah. Now, don't want to move away from this, because you're right, Lynn, we could talk about this forever. But I do want to get to this next point, because for anyone out there who has not heard of the Babylon Bee, the Babylon Bee is a satire site, right? They publish stories they call them news stories. They're satire. Everyone knows it's fake. It's like The Onion, but they're under fire again because they continue to scare the fake news media by potentially misinforming people with their jokes. Now, so what's going on here is that they made fun of CNN. So they're allowed to write satirical pieces about anything, but when they start making fun of the real fake news out there, CNN, they got absolutely hammered by CNN. They started freaking out over there. So the Babylon Bee basically had a headline that said there's only room for one fake news site, and they were like CNN. I mean, this is funny stuff. Gosh, don't we need some comic relief, guys? But I think it's really basically CNN's argument was that there are so many people that are going to read these stories and they're going to get misinformed. Well, excuse me, Terrence, hasn't CNN been misinforming people all along about President Trump, all along about the Trump administration, about our family, about Trump supporters? It's a little crazy to see them so afraid of jokes on the internet when we've all experienced how influential and damaging these media outlets truly can be by reporting facts that end up being incorrect, misreported, anonymous sources, totally fake.
CNN is the misinformation network. They have been misinforming people for so long. But they're mad at Babylon Bee because you know what? There is truth in comedy. It's truth in comedy.
Yes.
So that's why they're mad. Listen, a lot of people don't like the truth. And truth is in comedy, okay? So that's why they're mad. But CNN is fake news. And that, but they're now they're trying to fact check jokes. How can you fact check a joke? It's a joke. How can you fact check a joke?
Yeah, you're right.
And a joke.
And I think the fact that, CNN and other outlets are afraid that the Babylon Bee is going to be mistaken for real news just, goes to show the standards to which the actual news has fallen, because, they're absolutely right. Those are the types of headlines we would have laughed at 10 years ago, but are actually seeing in real life publications today.
Yeah. Go ahead, Terrence.
CNN is no different than Babylon Bee. Seriously. They're no different. I can't tell the difference.
No. And real life is starting to mimic fiction because, I posted a Babylon Bee article the other day about Meghan Markle that said, woman who thinks being a princess is too hard wants to now run for president. And, evidently she reportedly does. So, truth is sometimes, like you said, funnier than fiction.
Let me get some takes on that, because I was recently asked about Meghan Markle possibly running for office. And what I said was, if she thought the scrutiny she got during the Oprah interview was a lot, wait until you decide to run for office. I mean, it is absolutely nothing. She should have stayed a duchess or princess or whatever that was. I think that would be a lot easier than running for president. Terrence, I feel like you had some thoughts on this.
You know, listen, Meghan Markle is, listen, she needs to be a comedian, not president of the States of America, okay? Listen, Meghan Markle is a complete joke. She said she didn't want any publicity. She wanted privacy, but she called Oprah for an interview crying about her lavish lifestyle in the castle.
Yeah.
And you said they mistreated you. You want to be the president? Do you not know being the president is not easy? Do you not know what they put President Trump through as the president? I mean, they went after this man for literally nothing. I mean, he did nothing wrong. Okay, they had two phony impeachments, and she wants to be the president. Will she be able to handle the press? Will she be able to handle social media? I mean, she can't go calling Oprah every second, you know. Hong Kong is being mean to me. Oprah, Europe is being so rude to me. They won't talk to me. She can't do that.
Never mind the irony that we would literally be sort of ruled by the same British monarchy that we left.
I know.
You know, by having Prince Harry literally in the White House.
Well, we'll see what ultimately happens with that. I feel like if she ran, I just have a hunch, guys, she might run as a Democrat. So maybe she would be treated differently than Republicans are.
I don't know, you're onto something.
Just a hunch there. All right, so for our last topic here, we're going to talk about Coca-Cola and Home Depot, because they both have come out and said that they are against voter ID in Georgia, specifically. And guys, we've talked about this, Lynn. I know I've talked about it with you multiple times. The argument that somehow it is racist to require identification when you go vote that shows that you are a legal U.S. citizen, you are of legal age to vote, you are the person you say you are, you're voting in the right area. My goodness, there are so many reasons that it should be required to have an ID when you go vote. You got to have an ID to get on an airplane, to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes. I mean, I ask for my ID sometimes when I go make a purchase with my credit card. My goodness. What does it say, though, that there is so much virtue signaling that now these big corporations feel like they have to weigh in and are part of the woke left?
You know, I think it's so ironic that, you know, everybody pounced on the royal family for quote unquote bullying Meghan Markle. But what we're seeing here with this corporations sort of catering to the woke left, like you said, is they are literally being bullied into adopting these kind of postures when it comes to what's considered, you know, the leftist sort of, you know, what's right and what's wrong. You know, if they went and didn't take a posture on voter ID, people would start boycotting them, you know, and it's unfair because, like I've always said on your show before, I don't know one Black person that doesn't have a valid ID in their wallet. PragerU walked Harlem one day, and not a lot of New Yorkers drive, as you know.
Right.
But they all still go out of their way to get an ID because, like you said, you need an ID to travel. You need an ID to buy cigarettes. You need an ID to do almost anything in life, to rent an apartment, you know. So the idea that we don't have identification or valid identification is in itself actually more racist than not requiring voter ID.
Well, I guess, Terrence, we shouldn't be surprised, though, because Coca-Cola is the same company who was trying to get their employees to do training to make them less white. I don't even know what that means, but this is sort of maybe a nod to where we're headed. Frighteningly, I'm not sure what the ultimate goals are here. What is your take on all of this?
Well, listen, the whole voter ID thing is complete. Listen, the fact that they think, listen, and they got me stuttering because it's so.
It's ridiculous.
They're so fighting right now. So the fact that they think black people can't go out and get an ID is pretty racist. Okay,
Right.
You
like
think?
it's pretty. I mean, you think we're that dumb that we don't know how to go get an ID? You don't even have to have a driver's license. You can go get a state ID.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have and listen, Laura and Lynn. When I'm feeling fancy, I like to go, maybe to Walmart and get me a little cheap bottle of wine, and they ask me for an ID. When I'm feeling fancy, and
Some
listen,
ripple. Yeah.
exactly. And if black people did not have IDs, why are there so many liquor stores all around the black communities? That's what I want to know.
Thank you. And check cashing places.
Are you
right?
Exactly? So you mean to tell me that the rich white folks are driving all the way down to the hood to go get alcohol? I don't think so. So somebody got some ID around here. And you know what? I love my Diet Coke. And I don't want to have to I don't want to have to stop drinking Diet Coke. But if Coca-Cola keeps this foolishness up, Laura, I'm gonna have to find something else to drink.
Yeah.
And what is being less white? So I want to know,
Right.
what is being less white? So what is being more black? I want to know what they black is. So that's
Yeah,
what
by the way, imagine, Terrence, if that is what Coca-Cola had said, we're going to teach people to be more black. Do you think that would have gone over well?
Yeah.
Exactly. They would have been canceled. This
Yeah.
is
Canceled.
They want us to hate each other.
I know. It's
They
crazy.
want
They
us to
really
hate each other.
do.
They are creating hate. We need to love each other. With all this black and white stuff, man, that we are not living in the 1800s.
Thank you.
Let's stop going backwards.
Oh, that's the truth. Well, look, I want to say thank you to both of you guys for being on the show again. It's always great to get your perspectives. We really appreciate it. Terrence, I hope for your sake we don't have to cut you off of the Diet Coke, but we'll see what they do. We'll see how this goes.
Let's see how it goes.
So Lynn and Terrence, thank you both.
Thanks,
and
guys. Thank you, Laura.
to everybody at home for joining us as always. We'll see you next week for more of The Right View.
Woo.